The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
We're back on the show. Joining us is the host of Battle Line with Alan Nathan. Alan Nathan at alannathan.com. Thanks for calling in, Alan.
On board, David. How are you today?
Doing well. So I want to get your take, as the centrist that you are, on the Bradley Manning situation. Of course, the alleged leaker of some of the documents that eventually were made public by Wikileaks. I'm reading every day about how he's being treated, allegedly in a Virginia prison, I guess, for lack of a better term. I'm reading about his psychiatric state. What's your thought? I mean, what's the kind of middle-of-the-road position, first of all, just on the leak, and then tell me about Bradley Manning?
Well, people like to say that Julian Assange shouldn't be held accountable because these documents were stolen and then given to him. I would still say that he could be held accountable by measure of being an accessory after the fact. He was fully aware of the fact that these were classified documents that were stolen, and by him accepting them, I consider him an accessory after the fact. But I think the real problem would be with someone like Manning, or perhaps those who may have been of some assistance to him. I'm a vet myself. I was in the Navy, 4 years active, 2 years reserve. I had both a secret and a top secret clearance. These clearances aren't given for window dressing. They're very serious. And while it's true on some occasions, maybe even too often, the supposition that national security needs to be protected is often used as camouflage to conceal an administration's otherwise more nefarious intent, or, if you will, clumsiness. However, part and parcel of that is the fact that these secret clearances are, for the most part, quite legitimate, and if violated, can be injurious to somebody's life. So I think the full force of military law should be brought up against this guy, and he should be hung out to dry.
What I'm reading is that there is not really a precedent for somebody who, as far as I know, is still guilty, or rather innocent until proven guilty, although some are saying that it appears to be the opposite, to be held in these conditions for this period of time in the type of facility he's in. Now, whether or not you know specifically about that, do you have a problem with how he's being held?
No, I mean, habeas corpus is going to be realized, although technically Congress does have the right to suspend habeas corpus in times of war or public danger. People forget about that. They are actually able to do that. There is a constitutional authority, Article 1, Clause 9. Having said that, though, you and I are perfectly entitled to believe that he's guilty. That has no bearing on our judicial system, which does hold him innocent until proven guilty. But that doesn't mean that well-meaning, curious Americans don't have the right to assert that they believe, predicating their view on the evidence made public thus far, that he is guilty. What I'm finding bizarre is that only one person was the conduit for tens of thousands of secret documents, whether it's the classified level, secret or top secret. To me, it just stretches credulity to the snapping point. There's a lot going on here.
Well, that's why some are arguing that that's the reason that he is being, maybe people are going in terms of his treatment beyond what it should be, because number one, there's nobody else that they can pin a name to, and Julian Assange is not in the U.S., so the U.S.'s show of force, so to speak, is keeping Bradley Manning in these horrible conditions.
What horrible conditions? I mean, how comfortable should he be? These are the kinds of things that, you don't hang on a guy who's not guilty. My understanding is that Manning has done nothing in the way of really denying these charges.
No, he hasn't, but when I read that...
So at one point or another, I mean, people of goodwill can be understood as being serious thinkers, devoid of crazy bias, when they continue to believe that a man who's already acknowledged his own guilt can be thought of in a guilty context. But as far as what is so horrible about his treatment that you've heard?
Well, the problem I have is that what I'm reading is not the types of conditions that you would hold someone who is just awaiting trial or even an indictment, so to speak. So he's woken up. He's not allowed to even nap during the day. He's not allowed to exercise. If he attempts to exercise, he is forcibly held back, even in his cell. He's not allowed to have pillows or sheets. I mean, the conditions that he's been held in, whether or not you would call them torture, I don't care about that name. I don't even want to delve into that. They don't seem consistent with how most people in the U.S. are held pending even an indictment.
Well, we do treat a little bit differently those who we consider to be agents of a foreign power. It's the only time a person's citizenship is secondary to another category. And that is very much the case. People perhaps aren't aware of it, but it's covered in Title 50, U.S. Code Chapter 36, Subchapter 1, Section 1802. Basically says that, people who are, if you will, an agent of a foreign power,
but what
can still be treated in the same, with the same latitude that the FISA courts give the authority when it comes to treating threats from overseas. What's
funny to me, though, is the idea that he's an agent of a foreign power when, number one, I don't know that what foreign power would that be, but more importantly, many people think that by if he did, in fact, pass these documents along to Julian Assange, even if he has broken the law, which I'm not denying that he has, I don't know, that he is actually doing something to benefit the United States. So what foreign power is he an agent of?
Well, if intent were the only measure before determining somebody's guilt or innocence, a lot of folks would never be incarcerated for doing some of the most hideous things because they were doing it all in the name of a noble cause. But as you know, of the centrist, I've always believed that both political parties have been sort of guilty of that. They'll, in the name of a noble cause, trample on far nobler principles, regardless of what his intent was. If his actions entailed endangering the lives of fellow Americans, I'm not saying some good hasn't come out of this, because for years, that there was the assumption that the Middle Eastern states refused to advance the ball on Islam and Islam's relationship with the West until the Palestinian-Israeli conflict was taken care of. Well, that was pretty well dispelled when we all discovered that the King of Saudi Arabia, as well as the leaders of Qatar and the United Arab Emirates, all have prevailed upon the United States to attack Iran. So clearly their own existential needs do transcend their preoccupation and an obsessed attention of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. But on balance, no, but look, nobody has a free speech right to kill people. You don't have a First Amendment right to kill people. We all remember how everyone got caught up in the Valerie Plame issue, and my God, if you look at things within any reasonable contextual proportionality, we would all accept the fact that what was done with Assange far transcends anything that had ever happened to Valerie Plame. But do you remember how we all got into contortions over what happened to her because of the potential violation of her life? And of course, with her, there wasn't even any law violated because the Identity Protections Act had already run out. And the guy who really released her information, which of course was Deputy Secretary of State Richard Armitage, I've interviewed him before, he was the one who actually outed Valerie Plame, and he never saw a minute behind bars.
But specifically with the idea of the foreign power, we don't actually know of any foreign power that Bradley Manning is associated or loyal to.
No, we don't know that at all. That's what trials are for.
Sure.
But if the suspicion is strongly that, then they're not necessarily entitled to the same privileges and protections as a citizen. And that's according to, again, as I said, Title 50, where it goes into also when the president can issue electronic surveillance without a court order. He can do it through the Attorney General, and he's got up to a year to do it without getting technically a warrant. I mean, I'm just saying there exists in law these latitudes that people don't realize. So when they're exercised, folks think that, their civil liberties are being violated, when in fact, no, they're not. They're actually covered by statute. And it's just important for people to realize that. Look, this guy Manning is not somebody who's been screaming, I'm innocent, I'm not guilty, from out of the gate. He's acknowledged his guilt. Now it's a question of how much information can we get out of him.
And as it's important also to remind people that, especially I'm reminded when we hear about just because it's not illegal doesn't mean it's unethical when we think of some of the techniques that were used by the CIA in the Middle East. But that's a different conversation. Just in the last few seconds we have, the traditional consensus right now is those on the right tend to be against these leaks these documents being made public. Those on the left, in general, seem to favor it. Where do you fall?
I think that sometimes we have to accept the understanding that it's better for you and I to remain in the dark than it is for the enemy to be in the light. And as long as releasing information can prove injurious to people who risk their lives for us because they have this crazy romantic belief that our country is worth keeping protected, then we at least owe them the respect and honor of not getting in their way by threatening their lives, by taking a light attitude about releasing information that can kill them, all in the name of some greater good that we believe is idealistically satisfied and fulfilled.
All right, well, I believe so until I am actually shown, and maybe you have it, but we won't be able to get to it today, information of a specific person that was damaged by these releases. I so far believe that it's been positive. We'll have to leave it there. Host of Battle Line with Alan Nathan has been on with us. AlanNathan.com is the website. Let's do it again soon.
Look forward to it. Great as always, and want you back on my show, too. So, by the way, I hope you had a great holiday. Hope you had a great Christmas.
I did. Thank you.
All the best.
Okay, we'll talk to you soon. We'll go to break, Lewis, and then we'll be back after this. We will talk about who was labeled a Holocaust winner by our favorite news network and plenty more. Stay tuned.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.